And here we are in the final installment of the Brienne, Gender, and the Squishers series, where we've already covered in the previous 5 parts the importance of the Brienne chapters in terms of said gender and squishers, along with how it all relates to war, moral code, and existentialism. That said, one topic grew as I went along, and so here's a 6th part of the series on Bran, Brienne, free will, and God. So as I went over in part 4, Brienne and Bran's stories are paralleled quite a bit, more so than any other 2 characters in our story, and as I previously mentioned, the entire point of paralleling stories is to remind the reader that plots are somehow related thematically. And we do see this with the Bran and Brienne stories. We find that the injustice of patriarchal systems and perpetual war from the Brienne story are thematically related to the conflict with the others. However, the Brienne story ends in a rather specific way. While with Lady Stoneheart and the Brotherhood Without Banners, Brienne has an existential awakening where she examines her life, is faced with a choice, and she chooses her own moral code and destiny. And that, well, that's not the Bran story. I mean, it might be in the future, who knows, but Bran's story is remarkably different from Brienne's in terms of philosophy and morality. So, on this, going back, it should be noted that both the story of Brienne and that of the Brotherhood Without Banners, the group executing Brienne, are about moral code. And we've gone over Brienne's many connections to Bran, but significantly, the Brotherhood Without Banners is also heavily paralleled to Bloodraven and the Children of the Forest. Specifically, in Arya 6, A Storm of Swords, Sandor Clegane meets the Brotherhood, who is led by Beric Dondarrion, a one-eyed corpse of a man sitting on a weirwood throne beneath the earth. Of all the Bloodraven parallels in our story, this appearance of Beric is perhaps the most heavy-handed. Anyway, while Beric is on this weirwood throne in the Hollow Hill, Sandor argues with Beric and the Brotherhood about the source of their morality. The Brotherhood claims that they follow a code as they are Robert's men defending the realm, and Sandor rips their argument to pieces. Robert is the king of worms now. Is that why you're down in the earth? To keep court for him? The king is dead, the Scarecrow Knight admitted, but we are still king's men. Though the royal banner we bore was lost at the Mummer's Ford when your brother's butchers fell upon us. He touched his breast with a fist. Robert is slain, but his realm remains, and we defend her. Her? The hound snorted. Is she your mother, Dondarrion? Or your whore? Rocks and trees and rivers. That's what your realm is made of, the hound was saying. Do you think rocks need defending? Robert wouldn't have thought so. If he couldn't fuck it, fight it, or drink it, it bored him. And so would you. You brave companions. Now, the brave companions are, of course, savage hedonists and sadists. And Sandor clearly thinks Robert was similar, only seeking pleasure from sex, alcohol, and the thrill of violence. So Sandor's insult is essentially telling the Brotherhood that they are morally bankrupt. And Sandor's insult sends the Brotherhood into a fury. And later on in A Feast for Crows, Beric is replaced by a different corpse, Lady Stoneheart, but the morality of the company is still a central issue when Brienne herself makes it to the Hollow Hill. Thoros tells her that he doesn't know what the Brotherhood stands for. We were king's men when we began, the man told her. But king's men must have a king, and we have none. We were brothers too, but now our brotherhood is broken. I do not know who we are, if truth be told, nor where we might be going. I only know the road is dark. The fires have not shown me what lies at its end. And so the Brotherhood Without Banners, without direction from a king, and without direction from a god, while in a cave with a dead weirwood, a dead god, struggle to find their morality. And after this, Lady Stoneheart brings Brienne to a tree outside the Hollow Hill, and as I said, Brienne has her existential moment where she must choose her own path and moral code. The Bran story, though, it's not about this at all. Bran receives a dream where the Three-Eyed Crow establishes himself as Bran's mentor. Jojen and Mira then arrive at Winterfell to lead him to the Three-Eyed Crow. They are forced to leave Winterfell because it's destroyed, and then they make it to the wall where Cold Hands then takes them to the Three-Eyed Crow. And then Bran meets Bloodraven, who doesn't really present Bran with any choices. For the most part, Bran's story is pretty much him following directions. Yes, in his first dream, the Three-Eyed Crow tells him to choose, fly or die, and Bran does make a choice to leave Tumbledown Tower to head north. But unlike Brienne, Bran doesn't struggle with the source of his morality, and the people around him don't struggle with the source of their morality, and there is no existential crisis for Bran. Yes, like Brienne, Bran ends up at a cave and the site of a weirwood, Hollow Hill and the Cave of the Three-Eyed Crow being clearly paralleled. In fact, the Cave of the Three-Eyed Crow is also called a Hollow Hill. But there's little to no discussion of morality in Bran's case. Bran really just wants to not be crippled anymore. There's certainly no consideration of protecting people. In fact, Bran acts pretty horribly on his journey, seizing and mentally torturing Hodor. For being such heavily paralleled characters, on a moral level, Bran is no Brienne. So, what's going on? Well, our author has placed our two paralleled characters at a cave, the site of a weirwood, and a tree, with Brienne exploring existentialism and morality, so we should probably ask ourselves what themes are going on with Bran at his tree. So Bran, currently in his story, is entering the network of weirwoods. He's seeing the world, he's traveling through time, he's learning about the past. However, we should note that the weirwoods are a system where the dead's memories and consciousness live on together in perpetuity. If this description sounds a bit familiar, it's because the weirwood net is essentially heaven. It's a place where people, chosen people specifically, get to live on communally forever with God. Oh, it's a creepy portrayal of heaven, but it's heaven nonetheless. And besides the weirwood network being a place for eternal life, that is, keeping human consciousness going on forever and becoming unified with God, we have Bran's eating of the weirwood paste. With hints of cannibalism, the weirwood paste is the body of God, looks like blood, and enhances communion with God, which is precisely the same thing as Catholic communion, with its red wine and bread being the transubstantiated body and blood of God. Bran is absolutely going through a religious and sacramental process. Incidentally, this is not the first time that our author has created a biological stand-in for heaven in his writing. In his novella A Song for Leah, there was the Grishka, a big underground jelly that an alien race joins to live on forever in. The protagonist's lover, Lyanna, yes, Lyanna, joins the Grishka, while the protagonist Robb, yes, Robb, two Bs, chooses not to. The Grishka is even called God in the story, just as the network of weirwoods are called the Old Gods. Now, accepting that the weirwood network is a stand-in for heaven, the mirroring of Bran and Brienne becomes a little more clear. We have an existential story of Brienne where God has no place in the choices and the destiny of humans, existence precedes essence, and we have a religious story, one where Bran, the chosen one on a God-given quest, essence precedes existence, is obedient to God's plan, at least so far, and comes face to face with heaven. Bran communes with the weirwood at his location, that is, joins with God, while Brienne is at the Hollow Hill, a weirwood site without a weirwood. Or, if you count leftover roots, a dead weirwood. God is dead. The point is, despite Brienne running into plenty of religious figures, her story is very much godless. Adding on to this, it's important to note that existentialism relies on the notion that humans have free will. That is, they have the power of choice and they have control over their own destinies. This means, quite significantly, that humans have no fate. Meanwhile, religion tends to be more deterministic. Humans do have fate. God is an omniscient master of time and thus knows everything, including the future, and so everything is set. Religious texts even contain prophecies detailing aspects of the predetermined future. This means that individual choice must be predestined and not free in order to get to that set, God-known future. Otherwise, God would not be omniscient. Now, yes, there's usually a contradiction in religion, as the free will to believe in God or adherence to God's commands are almost always very important parts of the doctrine. It's a paradox. In the Bible, God commands Moses to tell the Pharaoh to ask him to free the enslaved Hebrews, but God is the one who hardens the Pharaoh's heart, so he refuses, leading to God punishing the Egyptians with plagues. All the events are predestined and completely in control of God, but the people are punished as if they had free will. None of it makes any sense. And moral code is definitely part of this paradox as well. Why on earth would a god need to curb human behavior with commandments and religious law when the future is already set and known by an omniscient god? And why threaten hell for those who act improperly when they were compelled to act that way in order to make the set future happen? Again, it doesn't make any sense. But to be fair to religion, most human beings are guilty of this same free will deterministic contradiction. Nearly everyone knows that yes, cause and effect is a thing. The present is caused by the events of the past, and those events were caused by events before them. The ground is wet because it rained because a cloud system came in because of wind happened because of rising heat, and on forever backwards in time. And if the events were recreated down to the subatomic particle, they would happen the exact same way again. But most people also believe that they are in control of their choices, that they have free will. They can freely choose to climb a mountain. They are in control of their lives. But the two philosophies are not really rationally compatible. Cause and effect means something made someone climb the mountain. Perhaps they wanted exercise because they wanted to look better, because they wanted more sex, because sex feels good, because of evolution, because of natural selection and biology, which is caused by chemistry and physics. The point being, the causal chain always eventually falls out of the thoughts of a person, meaning the causes were not actually part of their will. But then again, if everything is determined, why do we feel free? What's the point of consciousness, or the feeling that I am me, here, now, experiencing the universe, choosing things? Why do we punish or reward people for their actions if human actions are completely determined by genetics and environment? We have no definitive answers to these questions. Some people believe that free will is an illusion. Others believe that the choices of free will create branching universes and a vast multiverse of possibilities, while others believe that God's mysterious and paradoxical nature is too much for the puny human brain to understand. And others still would say that the existence of free will doesn't really matter so much as we can't see the future. The future may be set, but we don't know what it is, so we can continue on living our free will deluded lives as best we can. Of course, when talking about free will, the truth about it in the real world is not the issue. It's about what our author believes. And the world of Ice and Fire is a bit different from our world in that people receive visions that they believe are prophecy, and there's probably time travel. The future may be known in the world of Ice and Fire. And regarding all of this, we do find that in the Bran story, the question of free will versus determinism is integral. In A Clash of Kings, Meera and Jojen Reed come to Winterfell to find Bran because Jojen received green dreams about Bran, supposed visions of the future. However, Meera and Jojen disagree about the nature of green dreams. When Jojen receives a dream that Alebelly, Mikken, and Septon Shale will die, this exchange occurs. Maybe they won't drown then, he thought, if they stay away from the sea. Meera thought so too, later that night when she and Jojen met Bran in his room to play a three-sided game of tiles. But her brother shook his head. The things I see in green dreams can't be changed. That made his sister angry. Why would the gods send a warning if we can't heed it and change what's to come? I don't know, Jojen said sadly. If you were Alebelly, you'd probably jump in the well to have done with it. He should fight, and Bran should too. So the debate between Meera and Jojen is one about the nature of prophecy, God's messages, and free will. What is the point of prophecy? Jojen believes the future is set, therefore one cannot fight their fate. But Meera believes in free will, one's fate is not set. And this debate is really the heart of everything. Meera proposes that prophecy is merely a warning, a possible future. Either the future is unwritten, or there are multiple timelines. Whatever the case, if Meera is correct, then the future is unknown, and thus the gods are not omniscient. Meera's warning proposal actually diminishes the power of the gods. But if Jojen is correct, the future is known and the gods remain powerful, but simply illogical and mysterious. They send prophecy for no discernible reason. This debate continues on in A Dance with Dragons when Meera again brings up free will and determinism. He wants to go home, Meera told Bran. He will not even try and fight his fate. He says green dreams do not lie. He's being brave, said Bran. The only time a man can be brave is when he's afraid, his father told him once. Long ago, on the day they found the direwolf pups in the summer snow. He still remembered. He's being stupid, Mira said. "I'd hoped that when we found your three-eyed crow... Now I wonder why we ever came." "For me," Bran thought. "His green dreams," he said. "His green dreams." Mira's voice was bitter. And here we see more of the paradox of prophecy. Mira still believes in free will and wishes Jojen would fight to live, and then she and Bran explore the cause and effect of why they came north. Green dreams are the cause, but the events of the green dream are paradoxically also supposed to be the result of going north, the effect. How can something be both the cause and the effect? It makes no sense. The images of the green dreams were sent back in time and caused the crew to go north and make the images of the green dreams happen, which were then sent back in time, and so on and so on. But someone or something would still have to create the green dreams in the first place, and there would be no reason to do so if the events are predetermined, and no reason to do so if the events already happened. Why create the loop in the first place? If I've already eaten a sandwich, I don't need to go back in time to convince myself to eat a sandwich. If Bran's crew already went north, they don't need green dreams sent back in time to convince them to go north. In fact, logically speaking, the existence of prophecy actually proves that the future is not set. Mira appears to be correct. There must be a reason to send the green dreams, a cause to put that in motion. And the only possible reason is to change action, which means the future is not set. And if the future is not set, this means there is no omniscient God, which also means there's no omnipotent God, since an omnipotent God would also be omniscient. Incidentally, in our author's other writings, the future is always changeable. Most notably, in the Armageddon Rag, the protagonist receives a prophecy of destruction, and through his free will, causes it not to happen. Slum, I have to stop it. It's all coming down. Confrontation, war, Armageddon. They don't understand. It will destroy all of them. The Nazgul, Larry Richmond, Frankie. They're going to use her in some kind of sacrifice, Slum, and the gates of hell are going to open and all the dead are going to come back. Then stop it, Sandy. Change it. And beyond Mira's belief in free will and an unknown future, we also get a sense that there are multiple timelines in the Ice and Fire universe. Or at least, if there's one timeline, that timeline can change. The big event that shows that there are either multiple timelines or a malleable timeline is when Bran goes back in time and speaks to his father. Now, of course, Bloodraven protests and claims that Bran did not alter the past. "He heard a whisper on the wind, a rustling amongst the leaves. You cannot speak to him, try as you might. I know. I have my own ghosts, Bran. A brother that I loved, a brother that I hated, a woman I desired. Through the trees I see them still, but no word of mine has ever reached them. The past remains the past. We can learn from it, but we cannot change it." However, Bloodraven is wrong, and his beliefs are purely based on his personal experience. He was unable to change the past. His words never reached anyone. But we know that Bran's words did. Ned does hear Bran when Bran tries to talk to him. So in the world of Ice and Fire, not only is the future unknown, but the past and the present are changeable. There is no set timeline, there is no God's plan. And so we see that the Bran and Brienne stories, although very different, do complement each other. While Bran is exploring the nature of God and discovering there is no God-set fate for humans, Brienne explores the implications of that. Humans make their own future. Or we can say, if essence doesn't precede existence, then existence precedes essence. And going forward, I do have a prediction on where the Bran and Brienne stories will go from here, and this is largely based on a story written by our author called Sand Kings. So Sand Kings is the story of a psychopath named Simon Cress who decides to buy some ant colony-like animals called Sand Kings and battle them against each other for fun. The Sand Kings are a curious bunch though, as they worship Simon like a god and place his face, with different artistic renderings, on their sandcastle homes. These sandcastles actually house their psychic leaders, creating an image remarkably similar to weirwoods with faces and a green seer beneath it. Whatever the case, the Sand Kings learn, advance, change, and grow. Yes, as organisms, but more importantly, as societies. Thematically, the Sand Kings are clearly supposed to represent humankind, with one colony representing Western First World society, another representing the Third World, and a couple probably representing Soviet and Chinese societies. Now, a lot happens in the story with each colony, but the most important thing is how it all ends. The Sand Kings eventually kill Simon Cress. They kill God. Simon Cress began as an inspiration for the Sand Kings, but eventually they move beyond him. Whatever happens to the Sand Kings in the future, it will be without a god. They will forge their own destiny. And this is an interesting statement that our author is making. Our author clearly believes that religion played an important role as inspiration for mankind in its infancy, but at some point he believes society must move beyond religion and forge its own path. Keep in mind, this is also our author's life. He started out as religious, but later set that religion aside. And in our story, we see that Bran was inspired by green dreams. Jaime and Brienne's story too has odd prophetic dreams in it. Maybe the source is Bloodraven and the Children of the Forest. Maybe the source is a celestial being. Maybe the source is a time-traveling Bran. Regardless, we see where the story must go. When we consider our author's atheism, his beliefs about society as shown in his previous writings, the existential themes of the Brienne story, really the future of the story is clear. When given the choice between Mira and Jojen's outlooks, free will versus determinism, fighting versus resignation, an unknown future versus a set future, Mira's outlook must be accepted. Whether free will is an illusion or not, we must at least try to make our own destiny, which means God needs to die. Simon Cress must be killed. Existence needs to precede essence. The Weirwoods, Bloodraven, time-traveling Bran, whoever the Grand Puppet Master is who represents God thematically, needs to be eliminated for Westeros to advance and forge its own destiny. The Bran story and all of Ice and Fire must become the Brienne story. People must be able to choose for themselves. And this concludes my analysis of the Brienne story. I hope it changed some minds about the importance of the chapters a bit. If you have any thoughts or questions, leave them in the comments and I'll try to do a Q&A video. Once again, I'm probably wrong about half of this, and next time we will explore another overlooked topic I've been meaning to do for years: time-traveling Bran. So hope to see you then. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.